welcome back, or welcome for the first time. My name is Eden Izora, and I'm so glad to see you here today. It is about 7:30 at night right now, so the sun is going to set in about an hour or a little less, so hopefully we will have enough daylight to cover this topic. This is the 4th episode of the podcast, which is so exciting, and I've really been enjoying it so far. It's nice to just be able to talk about whatever and really have plenty of time to flesh it all out. And this particular topic that we will be discussing today is actually something that I get asked about quite frequently, and people, I don't know, I think they're surprised when they find out that I have an OF, and I've even gotten people who subscribe to me on there, and then their first message is like asking me about why I'm even there. And so, I don't know, I thought it could be fun to really break it down, and I will give you the background. So, what even put me in the position to even consider making an OF, and also talk a little bit about my decision-making process and the actual way that I decided to do it. So, yeah, let's jump right in. I have been a little there's been a couple things that have happened in the past 20 minutes while I'm trying to record this. There keeps being noises and different things getting in my way, so I don't know, but I'm continuing to try to record this, and if it doesn't work out today, then I will try again tomorrow. Also, this is all just off the top of my head, so I'm going to be kind of just speaking from my consciousness, and not really, this isn't like a planned out scripted video or anything like that, which none of my rambles ever are. But yeah, so to begin, I will take us back to 2021. So in 2021, my life was very different. I was married, and me and my husband had purchased our first home together, and I had recently turned 21, and yeah, life it seemed pretty stable. I was working at Disney at the time as a sales specialist over the phone. So if you ever called Walt Disney World to book a package with a resort and tickets to the park, you might have ended up speaking with me. And so yeah, I had worked there for 3.5 years, and my husband actually worked there too. So we were kind of really settled into this life that we had. And then something changed. So my husband and I had both been doing personal development in our own ways, and we were changing and growing a lot. I know that he was reading a book about some personal development thing specifically for men, and it had a lot to do with integrity and all that good stuff. So there was this month where things got weird, and he kind of had the vibe of someone who is terminally ill, but they don't want to tell their family, and so they just act like nothing's happening. But when you're having a nice moment, you might glance over and see that they're all teary-eyed and just staring at you, and you ask, "What's wrong? Why are you upset?" And they're like, nothing is wrong. But clearly they're acting like they're terminally ill or something. So he was acting like that for about a month, and I knew something was going on, but he didn't tell me until one day. We had recently bought bicycles, and we went for a bike ride, very chill, through some trails, and then we were starving after, so we went to Subway. We got some subs, and then I wanted to go home so we could eat and watch a show, but he insisted that we go back to the park where there was like some soccer fields to eat there. So we drove the car back and parked, and it was around this time of day actually, like 7 p.m. and he looked at me and he said, "I have to tell you something." And he told me that 4 years before, he had cheated on me. And he told me like specifics and everything. And it was like time stopped. My reality crumbled, and I got really, really calm. That's how I am when things go wrong. I just get super calm, and I didn't want to make any sudden movements or scare him so that he would stop telling the truth. So I stayed like physically still and calmly asked questions, trying to understand this new version of reality. And of course, this put my entire life that we had built together over the past 4 years, it put it into a completely different context. And as I was sitting there in the car, it it was like in the background of my mind, all of my memories were just being corrupted because there was this new knowledge being superimposed onto every cute moment we had had in the past 4 years. And there was a lot. We were together 24/7, so it was a lot of time to be corrupted. And so we went back home, and I asked him to leave for about 20 minutes so I could think, and he didn't want to, but he did. And as soon as he left, I got a suitcase and started throwing random clothes and stuff in there. I called my sister, and then I booked a Holiday Inn hotel, and I saw he was coming back because it had been about 15 minutes, and so I booked an Uber because I did not have a car at the time. And I hid my suitcase by the front door so that he wouldn't see it when he came in, because he came in through the garage. And I talked to him for a few minutes until I saw that my Uber had arrived, and I started walking towards the front door, and he followed me. He was very upset, and when he turned the corner and saw the suitcase, he just lost it and was very upset. And it was really awful and intense, but I had to keep going. I just knew that I had to leave, at least for the night. And so I took my suitcase and walked out to the Uber, and it was now dark outside, so it was kind of scary. And my ex followed me out and watched me drive away in the Uber. And that was the beginning of this chapter of my life. And so when I was at the hotel, I obviously was feeling horrible, but I was also weirdly excited. Not like a lot, but just in the back of my mind, I had this new freedom, and I did not owe any allegiance to anyone anymore. And so I downloaded TikTok. Very silly, but I had never had it before, and it seemed like something that I did not want, and I didn't want my ex to have it in the past, so I just stayed away from it for whatever reason. But I said fuck it. I downloaded it, and I even tried to make a TikTok while I was at the hotel, but it was bad, so I didn't do anything with it. But eventually, a few weeks later, I uploaded my first TikTok, and I didn't really have any expectations for it. I really was just at such a rock bottom that before I would have never posted on TikTok or publicly, like any sort of thing, because it felt embarrassing and vulnerable, and I knew that people that I knew might see it and think that I was being cringy. And obviously, when you first post online, you're not going to get many interactions, and that makes it feel more embarrassing. So I wouldn't have done that before, but because I was at such a rock bottom and I had lost the only thing that I cared about, or rather the main thing, I just felt like nothing mattered, and so I didn't care anymore, because to me, my marriage falling apart was the most embarrassing thing possible. So after that happened, I had nothing left to lose. So I started posting on TikTok, and surprisingly, I got some interactions, and it slowly grew, and this kind of introduced me to a whole new world that I had never considered before. And I ended up getting to around 170k on TikTok before I was eventually banned. Not for anything I did, but their algorithm just flags random stuff, so eventually too many videos got flagged and then I was done. And I had started posting more on Instagram, and Instagram Reels started being a thing. So I was getting some interactions there as well. And pretty early on, I was getting requests to create an Onlyfans. And I didn't want to at that time. There were several reasons. One, because I already felt a little embarrassed about the content that I was posting because of the attention that I was getting. I wasn't posting anything scandalous or crazy, especially at the beginning, but because of my body type and just my general vibe, the comments were a little bit like flirting with me or saying kind of sexual sort of things a little bit. And my ex, who I was still living with, but we were together but also not together, it was complicated. He really did not like my TikTok, and he did not like the comments. At the beginning, he had no problem with what I was posting, because again, it was normal. But because of the context of the comments, it made it turn into a weird thing, that he didn't like it. So this kind of made me feel a lot of embarrassment and shame when it came to the sort of reactions that I was getting from people. But I was also excited to have an account that I was growing. And so yeah, it was like this push and pull of, I want to do it, it's exciting, but then also feeling embarrassed and shameful because of the fact that people were commenting certain sorts of things. And so, yeah, to me it was like what I was already posting was already pushing the envelope for me in my life, and making an OnlyFans was like not even in the picture, not even something that I would have considered. And eventually, over time, things evolved, and I also started working out and getting more confident in my body, and I finally liked my body enough to post a bikini picture on Instagram, and that kind of opened a whole other door where I started being more comfortable posting bikini pictures and reels in bikinis. And for me, even though other people wouldn't know this, for me it was a huge step for my confidence, because it felt very vulnerable to be showing my body like that online, and just putting it out there and getting comfortable with it really helped me a lot. It made me feel more comfortable in my body, and I don't know, it felt good. But there was still, a little bit of shame when it came to things that my ex would say, and I kind of internalized that. So whenever somebody would comment certain things on my pictures or videos, I would feel embarrassed and delete it. So yeah, and I also kind of had this weird sense of moral superiority over people that had OnlyFans. So it's really messed up, but it almost was like a sort of, I don't know, like when people would say mean things about me, I would feel like, well, at least I don't have an OnlyFans. And also because I would get DMs sometimes from weird incel guys who would be like, I'm so glad that you don't have an OnlyFans like those other girls, whatever. And that would kind of irritate me, but also make me feel validated, like, oh, okay, I post bikini pictures and other posts that make me feel beautiful, but it's okay because I don't have an OnlyFans. I don't profit off of it other than, getting likes and follows sometimes on Instagram. But it was weird and kind of hypocritical. And during this time, I was deconstructing from the way that I was raised, which I was raised in a very strict religious environment, and there were a lot of rules that make zero sense, but they're just based on this religion's ideology. And one of the main rules is, it's kind of like an unspoken rule: don't question things. If you question, like, our religion, that means that you are being blasphemous and that's really bad. And you get shamed a lot for asking questions or daring to say that certain things might not make sense. And it's a huge step to even be able to ask those questions without feeling like you're going to get struck down. So I was starting to question things more defiantly and more bravely, and this led me to finally deciding that I no longer consider myself to be a person from that religion. And it was big. It was a big deal for me. But just because I had left this religion did not mean that I immediately had my own new religion to replace it. I kind of just had to sit knowing that I don't know. I don't have an answer, but I know that that religion is not the answer for me. And so yeah, I had to sit with that uncomfortable feeling of not knowing for a while. And it was scary, but I will say that once I left that religion in my mind, because I did not go to church for years already, but I still considered myself to be labeled as one of them. But once I removed that label off of myself, I finally could sleep at night because I was not buying into their beliefs that are full of shame and guilt and fear. Fear is a huge thing in that religion, and it was falling away from me, and I was feeling more in alignment with my own inner knowing, which is a light basically, and this light was expanding, and I was feeling real peace for the first time in my life, and it was exciting. And I slowly started to figure out what my own values are. My own values were kind of obvious. For me, a big one is don't hurt anyone else. And that's kind of like, I don't want to say the only one, but if you think about it, if you are hurting someone else, or you are trying to stop their free will, that covers pretty much every evil thing that a person could do. And aside from that, there are arbitrary rules that religions try to enforce onto people that to me are really dumb. And if it's not hurting anyone, why do you care? And it's because of, trying to control people through making them be afraid and feel ashamed of their natural desires. And again, if it's not hurting anyone, it's fine. So, yeah, this took me years to get to that point. And then, even still, I knew that OnlyFans was not wrong way before I made one. And I think it was like a year or 2 years before that I had a whiteboard in my room, and I wrote pros and cons of making an OnlyFans. And it became so clear, literally the writing on the wall was the reason that I would not make one was because I was scared of people's judgment. And funnily enough, the main people that I was afraid of what they would say was not my friends, not my family, but men. Ironic, right? Because men are the main people who would subscribe or whatever. But they were also the people that were DMing me stuff about how it's good that I don't have one, and I would constantly see them shaming women with OnlyFans in their comments. OnlyFans detected, opinion rejected, that sort of lovely comment. Which, if you think about just that comment, for example, they are literally trying to invalidate you as a human being just because you profit off of your own creation, whether that includes nudity or not. And it's mind-boggling, and it's so obviously stupid, but when you are just observing it from the outside, it's scary, knowing that people will see you and write you off. They just see that link and you're not a human anymore. Your voice doesn't matter anymore. And they think that they know all of these things about you based off of stereotypes. And I think things through. I typically am not the type that will just jump into a new venture without thinking it through from every angle. And so I considered it for years, and I mentioned it to a couple close friends, and they happened to be men. Their response was always, "No, don't do that," whatever. And this, of course, reinforced the fear in my mind that if I do this, if I create an OnlyFans, no man will ever love or respect me again. And that was really a bad feeling. But I also got to the point where I realized that the people online, like people that I didn't know, they treated me the same as girls with OnlyFans. They would comment mean things, shaming me for wearing bikinis, and I realized that it really was such a small difference in the way that people would treat me, but obviously a huge difference in the benefit in my life, because I didn't make any money basically on Instagram or TikTok, and Onlyfans was a clear way to monetize. It was a logical business decision, but I don't do things just because they're a business decision. I can't. I need my mind, body, and soul to be on board before I can proceed. And I finally got to that point in March, April of 2023. I remember I had posted an Instagram reel, and the caption I used was from a meme that I had seen, and it said, "Are you open-minded enough to know when you are being close-minded?" And I don't know, it kind of went over my head when I posted it, but a few days later I looked at it and I thought, what am I doing? I can see the next step that's available to me. The opportunity is right there. I was getting tons of comments and DMs asking for me to make an OnlyFans. My values, there was nothing in my values against it. I don't think that nudity or sexuality is evil or wrong. I think that as long as you're not hurting anybody else, go nuts. You can do whatever you want. And I do not believe that profiting off of your work is wrong. And so, if I'm taking pictures and videos, that's my labor. Plus, the fact that I'm being vulnerable in such an intense way. And I deserve to be compensated for that. And so, there was no reason anymore in my mind as to why I wouldn't create an OnlyFans. The only thing that was left was thinking about some imaginary future boyfriend who might not like it the same way that my ex had not liked my TikToks. And I know it sounds silly, but this was a big decision or threshold that I had to step over, which was, am I going to live based off of some imaginary man who I don't even know if he exists or not? Am I gonna make my decisions based off of his preferences? Or am I going to honor my own values and my own desires, which are also very important? And am I going to allow myself to take advantage of this opportunity that is fully in alignment with who I am? And of course, I risk maybe some future man not seeing me as eligible for his love. But is that such a bad thing? would I really want to marry a man who couldn't understand the nuances of sexuality and morality and profiting off of your own labor? And not to say that there's anything wrong with a person, man or woman, who's not comfortable dating somebody with an OnlyFans. That's valid for sure. But I also think that you should not sacrifice what you desire for the sake of someone else's preferences. And absolutely not if they don't even exist. They're just this imaginary person in your mind that may or may not exist in the future. And so it was kind of a decision that represented me choosing myself and allowing myself to explore this new side of life that I had not yet. And it was terrifying. When I first made my account, I kept it pretty low-key. I did not really tell a lot of people. I think I posted it on my story on Instagram like once or twice, but I really was not marketing it a whole bunch. I knew that if people wanted to find it, they could. And I started experimenting with my own boundaries and figuring out what I wanted to make and post and what I didn't. And I did feel a little bit of shame at the beginning as I was imagining people that I know finding out that I had made one. And I was projecting these reactions that I felt like maybe they would have, which would be like, I don't know, like they would think that I sold out or that I'm just like everybody else, or that, like that I finally got corrupted or something. And it was hard to go through with this choice without being able to explain myself, because obviously I wasn't gonna make a video like this back then when the decision was still so raw for me. I didn't want to hear other people's opinions. Now, I don't really care to hear others' opinions because I've heard them all, but it doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me as much as it would have at that time. So I kind of had to go through that experience and feeling like lots of people are judging me, but without being able to explain myself. And I don't know. It was a little embarrassing, but it also was kind of like the same thing as when I first started posting on social media publicly. It's that kind of cringe feeling, and you can imagine what people are thinking, but you also know this is what's right for you. And so you kind of have to ignore all of that noise and just continue. And so I did, and I was shocked by how it worked out. It worked out better than I had ever imagined. I'm not going to get into like specific numbers, but I will say that I had a number in mind before I made my account, and I thought, if I make this number in the first month or more, then I will feel like it's worth it. And in that first month, I made 5 times that number. And it was not a small number. And it was just shocking, unbelievable. And also, I was surprised because people in my life actually did not seem to judge me as much as I expected. Even my ex, I was still friends with him at the time, and I told him about it, and he was upset until I told him some numbers, and then he was like, oh my god. He even told his friend that he was with. And it was crazy. I just felt so free, and I felt like if I could do that, I could do anything. And I know how this sounds, right? Because it's like, what? If you could make an Onlyfans, then you feel invincible. But it really did feel like that. It felt like I was just breaking through all of my fears, and it was kind of the ultimate sign of the fact that I had chosen myself, and that I was going to do what was right for me, no matter what people said or thought about it. And I personally really enjoy the work that goes into making that sort of content. I have a lot of sexual energy, and I like the fact that I can channel it into a place that benefits me, because before I had Onlyfans, I just had a lot of energy that was bringing me into situations that just, they would always take from me, but I would not benefit in the long run. And so it was kind of unbelievable. And I know it's getting really dark in here, but that's okay. We just have a few more minutes and then we'll be done. But yeah, I don't know. I do want to say that if you are thinking about making an OnlyFans, there are risks, and I would highly recommend fully thinking it through, because I did. Again, it took me a really long time, and I thought about every possible thing that could happen. And a lot of the things that you're afraid of happening do happen. Things get leaked. Luckily now I have somebody who takes leaks down for me, but at the beginning I didn't. And that is a horrible feeling, seeing your vulnerable pictures just posted for free online. It feels very violating and really messed up. So if you are a person who steals people's intimate content and shares it, you are a bad person. But anyways, that will happen if you make an OnlyFans, and people you know will subscribe to you. That happened a bunch, which I personally think is very funny and interesting, but for some people, they might not think that. So, I don't know. Whatever else you might be afraid of, like people judging you or people invalidating you as a human, those things happen. So just be aware of the consequences that come along with it if you do want to make an account, and just know that once you put certain things out, you know, it's out. You can't take that back. So I would suggest thinking that through. Another thing that has happened that is kind of bad and kind of related to that fear that I had, which is when I interact with guys romantically, as soon as they see that I have an OnlyFans, sometimes, not always, but sometimes they think that I want to collab, or yeah, I don't have that kind of OnlyFans, so I do not want to collab. And just because I do that does not mean that I am very promiscuous. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're not hurting anybody. But I personally am celibate, and I do not do hookups or anything like that anymore. And I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding that, because they kind of assume that if you have an OF, you must be, you know, down for whatever, no strings attached, and that's not true for me. I am more of a lover girl, and I need to have an emotional connection with somebody before getting intimate. And yeah, it's like people don't always realize that, but it is good because it kind of weeds out certain types of people, because they don't feel like they have to hide their true intentions from me. So if that's all they want, it becomes very obvious very soon, and I can just avoid that. But I don't know. I think also, now that time has passed, my vision for the future and for my life has evolved further, and it's more based on what I want and not so much about pleasing some imaginary partner. And I may not ever get married again, and if I do, or if I do get into a relationship, it's going to be with a person who has their own core values. And just because, like, if they are somebody that is compatible with me, then most likely they are going to be somebody who is sexually adventurous and open-minded about that sort of thing, and not afraid of being judged. So yeah, if somebody doesn't want to date somebody with an OF, that's valid, but I just won't date them. It's simple. This is funny because we're like in the pitch black almost now, but I just want to make this be an hour long so we can finish up in the next minute or so in the dark. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to mention about this topic. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I've really come so far. I've come so far with my own integrity and values, and I'm really enjoying this expansion. Another thing, because I know some people wonder if I plan on quitting Onlyfans ever, and I am a type of person who changes a lot over time, so I'm not gonna say that, oh, I'll never stop. It's definitely a possibility that I will outgrow that phase at some point, but if I do quit, it will be because I don't feel inspired by it anymore, and maybe I want to use my energy elsewhere. But if I quit, it's not going to be because of, like, oh, I found God and now I'm gonna wear a turtleneck and, never wear a bikini again. That's not gonna be the case. I've already been through that phase. I've already experienced life as a person like that. And I'm happy to be done with that. So yeah, anyways, now that we are in complete darkness, I hope this video has been, at the very least, interesting for you, and I hope that I covered everything that I wanted to. Yeah, I hope this answers your questions. If you do have any other questions, feel free to ask. What else? Oh yeah, I should have said this at the beginning, but if you disagree with me, that's totally valid and fine, but please don't comment offensive things. Thank you. But yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you for watching, and hopefully next time I will record earlier in the day so that we don't end up in darkness again. But maybe you like it, especially if you are falling asleep to this. Maybe you want me to record at that time again? Question mark.